One issue every law firm I know is dealing with is how to think about their strategy for the future. The interesting thing is, this is a relatively recent phenomenon. You don't have to go back too many years before law firms really didn't spend a lot of time thinking seriously about strategy. And in fact, in our executive education courses on leadership in law firms, we do a lot on basic ways to think about strategy for law firms because it is relatively new to many firms. However, today, every firm knows that they need to have a strategy for the future, but many are struggling about what the right paradigm is to think about strategy for law firms that may be different than, let's say, it might be in industrial companies or other kinds of even professional service firms. That's why we decided to devote an issue of the practice to strategy and to offer a very simple matrix by which firms could begin to think about where they are positioned in the marketplace in order to think about what their strategy might be. The lead article for that was written by Bob Couture, a very interesting guy who's been doing strategy and strategic planning for McGuire-Woods for many years. And Bob offers really a very simple 2x2 matrix in which on the one axis is revenue per lawyer, and on the other axis is the law firm headcount. He divides the scatter plot that results from the AmLaw 100 and AmLaw 200 firms into 4 quadrants. And you can begin to think about where you are. Are you, for example, a firm with relatively few lawyers but high revenue per lawyer? Or a firm that has a much broader geographic reach but relatively lower revenue per lawyer? Bob's point is not that there's only one quadrant to be in. You can be successful in any of these quadrants, but you should be clear about where you are. And to try to emphasize that point, Bob tracks how firms have moved over a period of time with respect to both of these metrics. And you see some firms moving consistently in one direction, which might indicate a very strong strategy, and other firms really kind of moving a little bit, looping around a little bit aimlessly, which might mean that they're not thinking seriously and critically about these important 2 metrics. This isn't the only way that one could think about strategy, but it's an important one. And it's not surprising that Bob Couture came up with this simple metric because he comes from a discipline in which people are used to thinking about strategy. He came from consulting. And that is increasingly what we're seeing, is law firms bringing in more and more professionals from other backgrounds who have a background in thinking about strategy. Unfortunately, sometimes we still call these people non-lawyers, which is not a very helpful designation. Rather, I think we should think of them as professionals with important skills to bring to the table in helping law firms find a strategic direction, both by bringing in tools like this simple matrix or experience of other kinds of professional service firms. Having said that, there are things that are unique about law firms and about the current environment in which law firms sit. And one of the things that we're very excited about looking at in the coming years is how law firm strategy is going to interact with the increasing technological changes that are happening to the legal profession. People are tending to react to these in kind of one of 2 ways. Either they're focused solely on today and what technologies could we use to do what we already do cheaper and faster, or they're looking kind of at the quite distant future at which artificial intelligence and other forms of big data may radically transform the entire legal profession. Both of these perspectives have merit, but it's important not to isolate them. And one of the pieces in our strategy issue by Berdad Bagai, who has done a lot of consulting work, not just with law firms or other professional service firms, but at the top level of companies around the world, is that really strategy needs to think about three horizons. One is how to consolidate your existing market and to get the most revenue out of that market possible. Two, what are the adjacent markets that you can easily move into with your existing expertise? And at the same time, you have to be thinking about building for the future for those big changes that you can see coming down the road, but maybe 5 and even 10 years away. To do that, you need to meld a variety of kinds of expertise. And we see law firms more and more incorporating that expertise, not just in the chief strategy officer or chief operating officer position, but in positions like chief innovation officers or legal operations people. And we plan to be looking at that very seriously over the next year or so and reporting to you on what developments we see.